Life has these moments, doesn't it? The kind that just sideswipe you.
Hmm.
Maybe something amazing happens, something you've really wanted, but then bam, it throws everything you thought you knew about yourself completely up in the air.
Yeah, when those big feelings hit, they can spark these huge questions, right? Questions you maybe weren't even ready to think about.
Exactly. And it can feel so messy, really confusing, but also, I don't know, sometimes kind of beautiful in all that chaos.
Absolutely. That messy intersection of big external moments and really intense internal stuff,
Mm,
that's where vulnerability lives.
yeah.
And it's almost never neat and tidy.
Well, that complex, vulnerable space is exactly what we're going to explore today. We're diving into the pages of Heartstopper Vol. 2 by Alice Oseman.
Hmm.
We'll be looking really closely at specific scenes, the ones that capture these flashes of figuring out who you are, navigating being vulnerable, and how connecting with someone else can really push that self-discovery forward.
Yeah, our goal here is really to unpack that emotional journey you see playing out. We want to highlight how the characters grapple with these feelings, these identities, as they shift, and maybe see what the story suggests about our own experiences, too.
Definitely. And before we really jump into the book itself, just a quick mention. The kind of thinking we're doing now, sort of digging into stories to understand bigger ideas.
Yeah.
That's something we explore more over on our YouTube channel. Check out our Mindful Moments. We use AI book analysis there to offer insights, really aiming to spark that kind of reflection and critical thinking, just like we're doing here.
Good point.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the story. Starting right after that really pivotal moment, the first kiss between Charlie and Nick.
Right. A moment with so much potential, a lovely connection, but the immediate aftermath shown in the book, it's complicated.
Yeah, it really nails the shockwaves something like that can send through you.
Yeah.
Especially when it touches on parts of your identity you haven't fully looked at yet.
We see it so clearly, starting around page 265. Right after the kiss, the art shows Charlie back in bed, just withdrawn, curled up. The images alone tell you he's completely overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. And it gets more intense visually, doesn't it? Like pages 267, 268, he's wide-eyed, almost panicked, tossing and turning. It's such a strong visual for that internal chaos. You get it before anyone even says anything.
Totally. And when Charlie does put it into words later on page 296, his language is really stark. He talks about freaking out and having a proper full-on gay crisis.
Wow.
Yeah. This isn't just like mild confusion. It's shown as this huge internal storm, really. What does that tell us about how identity can sometimes emerge?
Well, it shows a couple of key things, I think. First, that even a really positive experience, like a kiss you wanted, can trigger serious stress if it forces you to confront identity stuff you haven't dealt with.
Right.
And second, it highlights that figuring out who you are isn't always this quiet, gentle thing. It can be disruptive, maybe even scary, especially if something big happens that validates feelings you weren't sure about.
That phrase, gay crisis, that he uses.
Yeah, it really captures the intensity, the overwhelming feeling for him in that moment. It's a reminder that, even positive relationship steps can happen at the same time as some major personal upheaval around identity.
And what's really striking is the contrast on page 268 with Nick's side of things right then. Well, Charlie's lost in his internal crisis, running away feeling empty.
Yeah.
Nick's just left standing there. The book has him asking, Nick, are you even listening to me? He seems really surprised, maybe confused, even hurt by Charlie just vanishing like that.
Oh, that's such a perfect illustration of how vulnerability can hit differently, isn't it? Charlie's reaction is all internal, driven by his own journey. Nick's is relational. He's thinking about the connection, the shared moment, and Charlie's sudden exit.
Creates a real potential for misunderstanding.
Exactly. One person's inner struggle gets, maybe misinterpreted by the other who's looking at the interaction itself. It really shows that navigating these early stages, even with the best intentions, means dealing with two different emotional landscapes at once.
So, okay, you've got this anxiety, this potential gap in understanding right after the kiss.
Mm-hmm.
How does the book show them moving past that initial, panic?
Well, that's the next really powerful beat, actually. The story immediately shifts to show how important reassurance and repairing that connection can be.
Yeah.
If you look at page 303,
Okay.
you see them reconnecting. And the visual is just simple, but really profound.
Mm-hmm.
An embrace,
Yeah.
a physical coming back together after pulling away.
And the words are so minimal, but they hit hard. Charlie says, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
And Nick just replies simply, it's okay.
Yeah. That exchange plus the hug. It's just a beautiful example of repairing the connection. Charlie owns his reaction, apologizes for its impact, and Nick responds with, total grace and acceptance. He validates Charlie's feelings. It's okay. Doesn't blame him. Doesn't hold on to being hurt.
It shows that key thing for healthy relationships, right? Being able to navigate those tough moments with forgiveness and understanding.
Precisely. It shows that being vulnerable doesn't have to break things. If it's met with support, it can actually build deeper trust.
Yeah, it underlines that running away doesn't have to be the final word. Choosing to come back, saying sorry, and being met with understanding instead of blame, that can mend things and make the foundation even stronger. It shifts it from potentially breaking apart to being like reinforced.
And that acceptance, that repair, it then creates a safer space, doesn't it? A space to talk about the very thing that triggered Charlie's initial crisis, his identity.
Right.
Which is where the story really leans into how connection can help you figure yourself out. Take a look at page 311.
Yes. This feels like such a key line for the relationship and for the journey. One character just asks the other, point blank, how did you realize you're gay?
It's huge, that question, because it takes all those internal swirling feelings about identity and makes them an explicit topic of conversation between them. It's like an invitation to share something really personal. And it acknowledges that figuring out your orientation is a real thing people go through. For Charlie, who's been out, hearing this from Nick is validating. And for Nick, asking it, well, it kicks off his own thinking, doesn't it?
It shifts the focus from Charlie's reaction to the kiss to the underlying reason, opening up talk about orientation itself.
Exactly. And you see how it immediately triggers this very personal, active search for understanding in the character who asked.
Yeah.
A bit later, page 347. The book shows one of them, privately, looking something up on a laptop. And you clearly see the search bar, what is bisexuality?
Oh, yeah. That's such a critical detail.
It really illustrates that figuring out your identity, especially around orientation, isn't just about having feelings. It's often this active process, looking for information, learning words, finding language that actually fits what you're feeling inside.
It's thinking and feeling together. They're not just feeling things, they're researching.
Right. And that whole arc from the external question on page 311, how did you realize, to the private research on 347, what is bisexuality? It leads to an external statement on page 361. I looked up what bisexual means.
It's such a neat, concise picture of actively trying to understand yourself.
It really shows how self-definition can involve finding validation through external knowledge, finding a term, understanding it, seeing if it clicks. That can be a massive step in making sense of your feelings and building a coherent sense of who you are. It goes question, private exploration, talking about it, all sparked by that earlier connection and conversation.
What's really interesting, I think, is how the book shows this journey. These big moments of questioning and identity stuff, they aren't just like isolated dramatic scenes. They're woven into the everyday, the casual, the physically affectionate parts of their bond.
Oh, totally. The deep thinking about identity is kind of punctuated by these simple moments of growing intimacy, like the scene on pages 325, 326, the rainy window kiss.
Yeah, lovely scene.
It's incredibly intimate, right? The mood, the setting, but it's also shown with this really sweet, slightly awkward reality.
Yeah, where one of them kind of fumbles and says, I'm so bad at this.
And the other immediately goes, you're not. It's vulnerability right there in the physical act, being met instantly with comfort and acceptance. That's how trust and ease get built, isn't it? Little moments like that.
Definitely. And you see it in the less, maybe romantic moments too, but moments that are just as important for connection, like texting while the dog's right there on page 344.
Yeah, just normal life stuff.
Or that interaction in the park, pages 364, 365, where there's another hug and more apologies and reassurance after things got a bit tense again.
These aren't massive declarations. They're like small bids for connection, as researchers call them. Just reaching out verbally or physically and having the other person respond positively. They show that growing comfort, that ease between them, marked by closeness and support.
It feels like it's in those smaller shared moments, the casual texts, the easy physical closeness that the real foundation gets deeper. You see it evolving when they start blending their lives more too, like the bowling scene around page 370. They're not just two people navigating intense feelings in private anymore. They're hanging out with friends, doing group stuff. It's a step towards having a shared world where their individual selves and their connection exist in a bigger social picture.
And then you get scenes that mix the totally ordinary with the really profound, Like that revision session starting around page 438, going through 440, 445, 447, 448.
Right.
It starts super mundane, right? Teenagers studying,
Maybe a bit boring.
throwing a pencil.
Yeah, very relatable. But then it subtly shifts. Page 440, see a hand reach out, just a quiet moment during the studying.
And by page 445, that casual closeness is much deeper. They're hugging on the floor. Those visuals on 445, 447, 448 are so effective because they show that progression from lightheartedness and just being near each other to this really deep, physically intimate embrace and kissing.
Yeah, it really escalates naturally.
And right in the middle of that physical affection, there's this moment of really profound emotional vulnerability, a clear statement of feeling. On page 447, one character just says, "Going out with you is like a dream."
Mm-hmm.
Placing that declaration inside an everyday activity that's become intimate. It just underlines the positive feeling solidifying through all these shared experiences, the ordinary ones and the affectionate ones.
It demonstrates so well how a deep connection isn't just built in the big dramatic moments or identity crises. It's also built in the comfortable rhythm of normal life, studying, hanging out, laughing, being close, which then gets punctuated by these genuine moments of affection and expressing deep feelings. It shows everything, integrating self, relationship, daily life.
So, looking back across these pages we've talked about, the book really does bring to life how that sometimes confusing process of finding out who you are can be so closely tied to connecting with other people.
Yeah.
And supported by it, positively.
Yeah.
Charlie's initial confusion and anxiety, they aren't just brushed aside, but they're met with support, with understanding, with grace from Nick. And that creates space for Charlie to grow, and also for Nick to do his own exploring and defining.
It's a powerful story example, isn't it, of how those positive ideas we talk about, needing support for self-acceptance, the value of open communication, building trust slowly and naturally, how they actually play out page by page in these characters' lives.
Exactly. And, exploring journeys like this, digging into stories, whether they're fiction or from real life, that's really what we try to do here.
Right. And if digging into stories for insights like this resonates with you, remember our mindful moments over on our YouTube channel. We use AI book analysis there to spark reflection on these kinds of themes. And of course, explore our podcast for more explorations into different topics and stories that shape how we see things.
So after tracing this journey through the book, from panic to connection to self-definition, here's maybe a thought to take with you. How do those intense connections, those vulnerable moments you share with people in your own life, how do they lead you to ask new questions about yourself, your identity, maybe even the world?
Yeah, definitely something to think about. If you found this exploration valuable, please do subscribe so you don't miss what we look into next.
Yeah, please do.
And maybe share this particular exploration with someone you think might connect with it. If you want to experience the full story we discussed,